Hey there, cake friends! Welcome to today's video celebrating the 10-year anniversary of Over the Garden Wall. It's a mini-series that came out on Cartoon Network, and it's being celebrated this year by the creator Patrick McHale and Aardman Animation Studios, but with the release of a stop animation short film that came out several days ago. So if you haven't seen that, you should definitely check it out. It was super cute and, you know, had that same lovable, eerie vibe that keeps people coming back to rewatch the original series each year. The show's creator has listed a bunch of different sources of inspiration for the visual appearance of the show, from like old postcards to classical art and things like that. But one of the parts that really stuck with me is the title cards, where there's like a little skull and wing symbol up at the top of them. So a few years ago I went on a road trip through New England to do some leaf peeping, and we stopped in Boston and we toured the Granary Burying Ground. It's an old cemetery, and a lot of the headstones there from like the Puritan era, and that was a common design in Puritan funerary art with the skull with the little wings on the side. It was like the simplistic way that they represented a soul leaving the body, but I thought that was spooky and cool. And I did read that at one point there was someone buried there with the last name of Endicott, which I thought maybe was an interesting coincidence, or maybe it's just a common last name, who knows. So I did start the cake with creating the more plucky of our two protagonists, little Greg. Started with him, and then I moved on to some other items for the cake, either items that were significant in the plot or just visually I thought they were cool. And that's a rock fact, I just picked stuff that would look cute on the cake. After that, I moved on to the jug of molasses from the School Town Follies episode, but I guess I don't really have a sense of where the camera was while I was writing the text on the side of the jug, so it is out of frame. No sense at all. Next, I'm making one of my little turts. It's the turt with the blue piece of candy from the first episode. Making the legs, letting those firm up first before adding the weight of the shell on it, just so that his legs don't get smushed at all. And then he turned out pretty darn cute. He's probably my favorite one of all the extra items that I made. And then here's our lovely little mixtape for when the haunted ruins of night call your name and you just gotta make a mixtape for your crush. Really put yourself out there. But while we're back on the black turtles, what are some of your favorite theories or fan theories about the show and how you interpret different themes? I just really like to hear what different people think about the show, and I know the turtles are one thing people like to wonder about. Ugh. And then next we're on to that creepy bell from the spookiest episode with Auntie Whispers. And of course the hat from the band in Lullabies in Frogland, which has a really charming song in that episode. Moving on to the Pottsfield episode. This is one of the pumpkins. I was trying to decide if I wanted to do this expression or the painted expression on Enoch's face, but I ended up going with this expression because I love that just sort of vacant, deadpan, mouth agape expression that you see like almost as soon as the two main characters walk into the barn and interrupt their private engagement. Anyway, also at this time I'd like to invite you to like and subscribe, but most importantly hit the bell, because I don't have a regular upload schedule just yet, and that'll keep you from missing new cakes that I come out with. But the ringing of the bell won't command you too often, so don't worry, you won't be bogged down with notifications. And then where are we? Oh yes, the scissors. It's Adelaide's golden scissors that Beatrice is trying to get throughout the show. They get painted gold and then later add a little black outline to make them more cartoony. Next, we will cut back to Wirt. I just really love Wirt's character. He's kind of, the reluctant hero type, and all the voice acting in the show is great, but especially Elijah Wood's voice acting when Wirt just kind of trails off into some wistful kind of monologue and musings. Just super good. The inflection just cracks me up every single time. Just adding Wirt's eyes in the same way I did Greg's, and then cutting his little triangle nose. Wirt, you have beautiful eyes. Wirt really looks like a original Animal Crossing villager here without his head, with that little triangle nose going on. Anyway, and then I just used a large piping tip to make the curved indentation for his smile. Next we have Beatrice, and I did make her out of fondant except for her legs, which are made out of wire. She turned out pretty cute. I wish her face could have been a little more like her expressions, but it was so tiny it was kind of hard to get her just right how I wanted her, but she still turned out pretty cute. All her colors matched, and I come back and add more painted details on her wings for the final picture. And then where is that old frog of mine? Here he was really giving me the runaround and looking like a real leg face McCullen. So I did squash him and remake him off camera, and then he became more like his lovable little self. And then once he had all his spots painted on, it really tied the room together, and he looks just ready to belt out a ballad to his fellow froggy friends. And then here we keep working on Wirt's design. I made little holes for his hands where they'll go. You can hold my hand for the burger, I don't care. And then put the collar on his cape and the clasps and buttons. And finally we'll fit Wirt for the pointy cone upon his head, but we won't see him completely finished till the end of the video because his secrets are too secret. And then we'll finish Mr. Candy Pants himself with the final details to his outfit. The straps to his overalls and like his little side bag, the little satchel he carries. I did think that it was really funny that we didn't figure out why Greg is wearing a tea kettle on his head until like the last 2 episodes. But yeah, that was a really silly reveal. Anyway, moving on, we do have to start the actual cake part of the cake. I chose to do the dark lantern since it's kind of a crucial element to the whole show. In my head I always imagine it as a black lantern, but looking at photo references it's a dark red lantern. It's just always in silhouette because the light is so bright coming from it. So I started with a vanilla and chocolate layered cake, and I used ganache on the outside because not only is it delicious, it's pretty sturdy. And I went to cover the cake in fondant and did just kind of fill my shoulder for a hot minute there. Ain't that just the way? And for any parts that I needed to keep their form, I made them ahead of time and let them dry on a mold or something so that they would keep their shape after being added to the cake. And I wanted to add a cool feature to make the lens of the lantern stand out a little bit more, so I made it out of isomalt. I didn't film that part because it took me like a bajillion tries to get it right, but I'm happy with how it came out. And then I painted the silhouette of the beast on the lantern lens so that it looks like he's kind of looking down on the whole scene in front of him of Greg and Wirt and all the items, while the light of the lantern is cast out before him. Anyway, after that I just started adding the finishing details, and I add a bit of a darker shade of paint to the cake, edible paint of course, to make it a darker, closer to maroon color with some shading. And for the lantern's handle, I made that out of modeling chocolate because it firms up and holds its shape pretty well, and you don't have to worry about cracking as much for that. And that's the completed cake. I really loved working on this project. I think it's actually one of my favorite cakes to date that I've made, which is kind of saying a lot because I've made a lot of cakes. Yeah, and that's a rock fact. Okay, bye.